All right, what's going on, everybody? Let's take a couple of minutes and chat. So I wanted to cover a couple of things today, but I wanted to start with a story because I don't know that I've shared this before, but I may have said this in an interview. There are certainly friends of mine that are well aware of this, but if I have shared it publicly before, it hasn't been often. So there are going to be a lot of people who don't necessarily know this. So I want to talk about what I guess you could call uh, freedom peccadillos. Okay. So what's a peccadillo? Small sin. You know, I guess that term is probably borrowed from the Spanish, you know, peccadillo. Anyway, so a small sin, peccadillo, like when they talk about, politicians, peccadillos that may or may not become scandalized, etc. So it's a small sin. So freedom peccadillos. Uh, while the last couple of years that I was in the Army, so let's say from the spring of 2020 until the fall of 2022, so for 2.5 years, I wore a mask. Okay. Um, because the, that was a policy on the installations that I was on. So I was in Korea at the time in the spring of 2020, the summer of 2020. Um, and I do remember we gradually kind of started to wear masks. And then when I left in June of 2020 and got to Fort Leavenworth, Kansas for a year, I mean, we wore masks every day for a year. I hated it. I mean, I completely hated it, but we did. But we wore them for a year. I did too. And then as I was leaving there, and then from Fort Campbell, Kentucky, I'm sorry, from Fort Leavenworth, Kansas, I went next to Fort Campbell, Kentucky. That's where I was in my battalion command position. If at that point, a lot of people were already starting to take the shots, but if you had not, if you were unvaxxed, then you had to wear a mask, and I wore my mask. Um, I'm not here to defend wearing the mask. I'm just telling you that I did. So, I mean, it is what it is. I I don't believe in the mask. I never did. Since I left the Army and have never had to put up with any of those policies, I haven't worn the mask at all. So, in a year, I have not worn a mask one time. I don't think I've gone into a single place of business um, that has required it at all, right? So, but I'm telling you that I did, and if you blame me for that, then like that's cool. I understand, right? When you comply with that stuff, you are giving up some of your own freedom. That's what I'm telling you. Like I agree with that. Now, it was a policy that I was not going to be able to affect, and for me, I'm not defending my actions. I'm just explaining them. For me, I had red lines, and then I had policies that I did not like, but they were not essentially red lines. Um, Ultimately, I was willing to give up my command to not take the COVID-19, and then ultimately I was willing to walk away and resign altogether from the Army over the shot. I was not willing to do that over a mask. To me, there's still a world of difference between a mask and a shot. I'm not telling you the mask is good. I'm not telling you that I was right to wear the mask. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that I was willing to cede a little bit of territory. I was not willing to cede a lot of territory, right? But here's another one. This one, in my mind, was ceding much more territory than just the mask, and that was the flu shot. And I haven't told a lot of people about this. This is what I was saying that I had not necessarily told a lot of people, not because I've hidden it. It just hasn't necessarily come up, right? So, just to set the timeline, in June of 2021, I take command of the battalion, one of the battalions in the 101st Airborne Division on Fort Campbell, Kentucky. In August, the mandate is implemented. I had been in command for about 2.5 months when that happened. And then in October, I'm relieved of command. In November, so right after I'm relieved of command, I'm in my new job as the recently relieved, the battalion commander who's just been fired from his job. So now I'm a lieutenant colonel on the division staff. So the staff for the commanding general, like the division commander, the 2-star general. So now I'm on his staff because where are you gonna put a recently fired battalion commander? I mean, you gotta go stick him away somewhere on the staff, right, with a bunch of other lieutenant colonels. So maybe I'm this pariah. I don't know. Everybody actually was pretty cool with me, but I'm this lieutenant colonel who's clearly not on the team. Didn't take the shot. Everyone else did. Maybe some people respected me. Maybe thought I was dumb or a zealot, whatever. But now I'm on staff. My career is clearly over. Blah blah blah. Okay. Well, now it's flu shot time, and I've just been relieved of command for not taking the COVID shot. I've taken a flu shot every year of my career, and at this point, I was at about 18 and a half years of service. And I'm like, what am I going to do? I do not want to take this shot. But I've taken one every single year. I just got fired from command just a couple of weeks ago for not taking the COVID-19 shot. Okay. So long story short, I take the flu shot. I take it deliberately. I'm not here to defend that. I'm not telling you that was the right decision. I'm telling you that's the decision that I made. That's what I did. I'm not telling you that I did the right thing. In fact, my entire frame for this discussion here is that, I'm calling it like a freedom peccadillo. Maybe it's a little bit more than a peccadillo. I don't know, but in my mind, I told myself the COVID-19 shot, taking that was a red line, or taking it would have been crossing a red line. The flu shot, I've taken every single year. If I don't take it now, people are going to think, rightly or wrongly, they're going to think that I'm just being unnecessarily obstinate. And it could potentially muddy the waters and therefore detract from the decision that I made to not take the COVID-19 shot. Now, maybe that logic is sound. Maybe it's not. I actually do think the logic is sound. I will tell you, though, that sound or unsound, as that logic may have been, I will tell you, looking back on it, I don't think anybody cared. I took the shot. A couple of months later, I still resigned. So, but at the time, I don't know that it was a foregone conclusion that I was going to resign. I submitted my resignation paperwork on March 2nd, 2022. I took the flu shot like mid-November. Okay. I started thinking about resignation in February of 2022. I'm not saying that was the first time I ever thought about it, but there was a directive that came out January 31st, 2022 that said, hey, everyone's going to get vaccinated or you're going to get, and I chose to resign instead. So late January, early February into early March. I'm sorry. So late January, February, early March, I was very, very strongly considering resignation. In November, when I took the flu shot, I don't remember exactly where I was at on that, but but everything's a process, right? So I certainly was not 100% decided that I was going to resign. I don't know. Maybe at that time I was like, you know what? At that time I would have been 18 months from the 20-year mark and therefore qualifying for my pension. So maybe I was thinking, hey, I can still limp across the finish line. There was a time, when I took command, I was like, I don't think I'm going to make it through the 2-year command, but maybe I can make it where I'm still in the Army long enough to make it to, 20 years, like limp across the finish line. I may get relieved of command, but they may not be able to get me out of the Army before I hit 20 years. Those were kind of some of the thoughts that I had as I took command in June of 2020. By November, I'd already been relieved of command. I don't know what's going to happen with my career. My career is over. I'm certainly not going to advance. I mean, I'm a total pariah, at least from the perspective of the Army. But I don't know that I knew for sure that I was not going to make it to the 20-year mark. So I took the flu shot, like I had every year before that. I did not want to take it. I was very conflicted, but I told myself, that's not the red line. I don't like it. I'm not happy about it. I don't want to be in this situation. I don't want to take it. But, you know, the COVID shot was the red line. This is not. If I had it to do all over again, would I take it again? I don't know. I don't know. I can't. It's hard to take my perspective in August of 2023 and then rewind the clock almost 2 years to November of 2021 with the information that I had then and the perspective that I had then. I don't know. I mean, I wish I had not had to take it for sure, you know. Anyway, so what I'm saying is that people can give me credit for using the COVID shot and ultimately losing my career. But I'm here to tell you that there are people who did more to resist in this fight than I did. I've come across people who, throughout the entire COVID, you know, for 3 years, and they never wore a mask. Now, those people are extremely rare, very few and far between, but they do exist, you know? So why is this important? Why am I even kind of doing this, you know, analysis of what those last couple of months for me or what that last year for me looked like in the Army? Because this isn't over. It's not over. This is going to happen again. Now, maybe they'll use some sort of, you know, health scare. I mean, you know, some sort of health scare. I don't know. I don't know. But something is going to be done. Some sort of op is going to be perpetrated that is going to result in the loss of freedom. And so at the end of the day, we have to make the decision. It's always easier to make the decision ahead of time as to what we're going to do. What are the red lines? Now, I'm not here to tell you that everything should be a red line. I'm not here to tell you that. I do think people need to realize what those red lines are. I'm not here to tell you that you can never, ever, ever, ever cede an inch. It's not helpful when we do, that's for sure. But, you know, in plenty of military campaigns, you do have to cede a little bit of territory here to gain some sort of advantage there. I mean, that stuff happens, right? And people make those decisions very deliberately and with strategic intent. You know, that's that can happen for sure. But by and large, when we cede our own freedom, when we freely give up our freedom, we're giving it to people who are not going to give it back, right? So there's already talk about, you know, new variants. I mean, and if there's one thing we should take from that, can they realistically roll that back out? I don't know. But the fact that they may even try, or that they're already trying to test the waters for the receptivity of the narrative again, like are people going to be open and receptive to the narrative that a new variant may come back, or are people going to just ultimately reject it? I don't know. I hope people ultimately reject it. You know? But the fact that this is even possible is because we collectively proved that we will believe almost anything, you know, collectively as a people. That if they get the narrative or the media to go along and parrot the narrative, and the media is completely controlled. I mean, if people don't understand this by now, then well, you better wake up quick. Because like I said, this stuff is gonna happen again. So, you know, the reason I'm sharing this story is because I am glad I'm no longer in the military. I am glad that I no longer have I'm no longer part of an organization that has that kind of control over my decisions in my life. I never liked that part of the military. Now, I'm not anti-military. I never have been. I'm very proud of the 19 years that I served in the organization, but I'm more proud of the way that I exited. Um, I'm very, very glad that I'm not in the military right now. I don't want to be in the military. I do not want to be part of this organ of an extremely corrupt government. Um, but another reason that I'm glad that I'm not in is just because I don't want that control over my life. I just want to be able to have much more liberty over my own personal decisions, because the military is not going to look out for its people. It's just not. It's not going to do it. It's too corrupt an organization. How long has it been corrupt? I don't know. We can quibble over how long it's been like that, but at this point, it doesn't matter. It's just that it is like that, you know. Um, so ultimately, what I want to urge people to do, myself as well, is we've got to put ourselves in positions where we can maintain our freedoms to the greatest degree possible. So, um, a job where you have more freedom, even if you make maybe less pay, it may be helpful to maybe sacrifice a little bit of pay to have a job that grants you more freedom, whether that's freedom to live where you need to live or whatever. But if these things happen again, we saw that certain areas are better to live in than others, right? Um, but above and beyond that, people have got to start asking themselves, where's your money? Um, where's your food coming from? How are you going to get medical care if you need it? How are you going to get clean water if you need it? I mean, we've seen how fragile the supply chains are. What if you need to defend yourself? How are you going to do that? Do you live in an area where you are even able to defend yourself? I'm not even just talking about gun laws, though I am partially talking about that. I'm not advocating violence, but I mean, you got to be able to defend yourself. I mean, I'm a big advocate in the first defense is self-defense. Just like, so, you're always taught that like the first aid is self-buddy aid. So like in the military, they teach you, if you get injured, but the injury is not so catastrophic that you can't start to do some self-aid, then you do self-aid. If you injure yourself, you do self-aid, and then your buddy helps you out, or you help out your buddy because your buddy's injured. Then you get a little bit more formal care where like a medic comes over, or you're evacuated out to actually go receive some some formal medical care. But same thing with defense. The first defense is your own self-defense, your personal defense. You got to be prepared for that, right? Which means you got to have the means to do that. You got to know how to do that. Your property has got to be situated in a way that is conducive to defense. Where you live, whatever. People have cameras, people have fences. I'm not trying to give anybody a lesson in security. I'm just saying people got to ask themselves about the situation that they're in, because my greatest concern is that people think that COVID is over. Now, maybe it's over, maybe it's not over. It doesn't matter. Maybe they bring it back, maybe they don't. That's not the point. The point is, whether it's COVID 2.0, whether it's another, whatever it is, it's going to be some sort of deliberately manufactured event, whether it's a health scare, whether it's whatever. It's going to happen again. Why? Because we didn't do anything when this happened. There's been no accountability. There's been none. So it's going to happen again. We haven't put ourselves in a better situation. Some people are more awake, but a lot of people are starting to go back to sleep. Okay. So we all need to do an assessment. What have we learned over the last couple of years? And are we in a better position now in terms of our own freedom, our ability to take care of ourselves, protect ourselves? Are we in a better position now than we were 3.5 years ago? What have we learned? Are we more aware of what's going on now than we were 3.5 years ago. So I'm here to admit I didn't get everything right during COVID. And I think I was much further ahead than a lot of other people, and that's not to toot my own horn, but I'm telling you, some of the advantages that I had was that I felt like I was hip to the COVID narrative from day one. I mean, I never believed it. And in the first days of February 2020, I was super skeptical. I never, ever bought it. A lot of people did. That doesn't mean that I'm smarter than anybody else. It means that I had the advantage of that skepticism, which maybe helped me make some better decisions than other people did. But hopefully some of those other people are now awake. So what are you going to do with that knowledge? So that's kind of what I wanted to share today. We've all committed some freedom peccadillos. But we got to kind of stop. We got to stop that. Even small things that we do that infringe on our freedoms, they don't help. And again, I'm not saying that there aren't times in which you may have to cede a little bit of territory for another type victory at the time. I understand that. But let's not needlessly cede territory. We've already lost a lot. I mean, you can say whatever you want about how supportive you are of the Constitution as a document, as ratified. But I will tell you that if you're a fan of the document, it's no longer in effect. It hasn't been in effect in a long time. Nobody in the government cares about the Constitution. They don't. Now, there are a couple of people who pretend to care, and there are actually maybe a handful of people who do care. But the overwhelming majority of people receiving a government paycheck that have taken oaths to the Constitution have no idea what it says, no understanding of the historical context in which the document was, proposed and ratified, and also don't care. That's just the reality. So if there's any advice that I can give, take that introspective assessment or an assessment with your family, your friends, your neighbors, and just figure out, are we in a better position than we were 3.5 years ago? Are we in the same position, or are we in a worse position? And what are the things that we can do incrementally each day to put ourselves in a better position? I got to do the same thing too. I have storable food in my house. I have a lot of it. I have water filtration systems. I got a lot of means of defense. I have a lot of friends who have a lot of guns. Okay, cool. That's great. Where's your food? I mean, you're not gonna eat 9mm rounds, So where's your food? So great to have a way to defend yourself, or I mean, to hunt if necessary. That's true too. But again, where's your medical care going to come from? Who are the neighbors that you can depend on? Who are the doctors that you can trust, that you can get to? And again, food and water, those are big. And I'm not trying to catastrophize, and I'm not here to be a doomsday guy. I'm just here to say, things may get worse before they get better. Maybe they won't. Maybe they'll get better quickly. I don't think so. I'm very optimistic things will get better. I'm not naive, though, and I don't discount the fact that they may get worse before they get better. So that's all I wanted to say. I really care. I do. I am a proud American. I do love my country. I think the government has long been infiltrated by very evil people. The government is not the country. I am a proud American. And I want to see our country become the country under God that we have long purported it to be. But it's not an accurate assessment of our country right now. And it has not been an accurate assessment for a very long time. But I want to change that. But it's going to require a lot of action. In fact, as a Christian, one of the principles that I believe in is being a man of action, not just talking, not just operating in theory, but being a man of action. Don't be afraid to do the right thing. Don't be afraid to do hard things that they have to be done. That doesn't mean that I don't um, uh, shrink away from responsibilities or get lazy sometimes. I mean, I do. I'm a human being just like anybody else. Part of asking for accountability from others is it's kind of a collective thing. Like in urging others to do this, I'm also urging myself to get more prepared as well. So let's hold each other accountable in that regard. Let's keep each other sharp, and let's not cede any more ground. Let's recover the freedoms that we've lost, and let's move forward. All right. Thanks, everybody.